Welcome to this edition of Diligent Institute's Inside Today's Boardrooms. I'm TK Kerstetter, and I'll be your host for today's show. Today, we're going to be talking about key insights when top legal boardroom experts discuss governance. And joining me back again to have this discussion is David Berger, who's a partner with Wilson Sonsini Goodrich Rosati, and is the newly elected president of the American College of Governance Counsel, which is a professional, educational, and honorary association of lawyers widely recognized for their achievements in the field of governance. David, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Well, TK, thank you. And it's always a pleasure to be back with you.
So when you look at the membership of the ACGC, it is like a who's who of corporate governance and board experts for like the last 30 years. Doesn't seem like there's a name missing. So I think a good place for us to start is, can you share what the organization's mission is and how it's impacted boardrooms and governance over the last couple of years?
Sure. It's great. Well, first, let me say what a great honor it is to be elected president of the ACGC. As you know, the ACGC includes virtually every prominent figure in corporate governance and corporate counsel over the last, I would say, 30 to 40 years. It was founded by the true legal lions of the corporate governance movement, including Marty Lipton, Bob Mundheim, and several others. And it was designed to be an organization where corporate governance counsel could meet, talk about the critical issues of the day, try and discuss how they were advising their companies and boards of directors on these issues, and talk about the critical time we are in the corporate governance movement and many of the issues we're facing. Because once again, just as in the 1980s, and when a lot of the corporate governance issues were coming to the fore, we're at a critical juncture where there's a challenge as to what good corporate governance means, who should be involved in that debate, what's the role of the corporation, and these really major issues which were sort of seem to have been decided in the 1990s and 2000s when people were writing about the death of corporate governance, are really coming back to the fore. And I think it's critical to have this type of organization where these issues can be debated.
Well, it's probably an understatement that there's a lot going on, and certainly that merits the legal experts' attention. I was hoping that you could give our audience some examples of the issues that have bubbled up to the top of the discussion agenda for this group. So give us some insight on some of the trends.
Sure. And what's important here is it's not just legal issues. It's very much business issues, and it's also political issues. Directors are facing politics in the boardroom. You've seen that with the ESG movement, the environmental, social, and governance challenges that directors are facing, where there's a movement of politicians in both sides, both on the right and the left, to raise issues about how boards are operated. We've certainly seen that with the Disney situation in Florida. You're seeing a lot of issues come through the SEC and its agenda, which are, again, are confronting boards of directors. And then most importantly, I think, is the issue of ethics in the boardroom. As new technologies emerge, as new issues are being confronted by corporations, as corporate power has increased dramatically, the issue of ethics in the boardroom and the challenges directors face with ethical issues have never been more important. And so I think we're also seeing all of those issues. And directors are looking for guidance. They're looking for those discussions, and they expect their corporate counsel to have a critical role in understanding of these issues.
It's funny. Things like culture and ethics used to be what was affectionately called soft topics that, people didn't have a whole lot of discussions about. And now, it's sort of taken center stage. And it's interesting to see, boards sort of adapt to having those meaningful discussions.
Well, I think again, they can no longer be called soft issues. I think that's right. I mean, just in the way companies are changing and technology is changing the way our business operates, ethical issues are changing the way and are rising front and center in our boardrooms. If you look at technology companies, for example, the rise of artificial intelligence in the world and the rise of misinformation, corporations have to take an important role and face and confront these issues, and directors confront these issues. The role of cyber in our business world is, again, it's a critical issue for directors to confront, and part of the way they look at these issues has to be from an ethical standpoint. And that also obviously involves the cultural issues that you mentioned. We're seeing those continue from the last several years. And again, those issues flow over, if you will, into the political arena. So it's hard to pick up a paper these days that doesn't talk about ESG either from the conservative, the right side or the left side, and whether ESG dollars should be spent on, how they should be looked at. And in fact, one of the Republican presidential candidates got his movement out of becoming this anti-woke capitalism. So there's a big movement on both sides, and directors have to, balance that debate, and they're very much focused on it.
AI will bring up amazing amount of ethical issues, with all the positive that it brings the risk of a great deal of risk to businesses and individuals. So I certainly understand that. So let me take it one step further, David. So what worries you when you sit and think about the trends that you see both in governance and in the boardroom right now? What sort of keeps you awake at night?
Sure. There's several issues. What's happened over the last 40 to 50 years is a really fundamental change in corporations and corporate law. And corporations have become very much politicized because of the growth of corporate power and the growth of corporate technology. And I think it creates on boards the importance of looking at this from a holistic trend. Boards of directors have to be much more than focused on shareholder profits today, just because corporations are, their employees are, their stakeholders are, and it creates on all of us as advisors to boards of directors and as advisors to corporations, the looking at a corporation from a holistic point of view. It creates a lot of challenges, I think, for everyone. And what keeps me up at night is the way new technologies are going to emerge and what that means for corporations and their stakeholders.
It sounds like a fascinating organization, David, when you get those people together. I'm sure there's a lot of people that would love to be a fly on the wall and hear those discussions about what advice each other passes along that will help boardrooms or help their individual directors. So I wanted to thank you for taking the time joining us, and also wish you the best of luck with, again, being president of this new, very honorable group. And we look forward to seeing you down the road.
Thank you very much. Thank you for giving me the time and opportunity to talk with you. And I look forward to speaking with you again in the future.
That will conclude this episode of Diligent Institute's Inside Today's Boardrooms. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back again next week when we take another look at a critical topic that'll help you be a better board member or committee member. So we'll see you then.